Welcome to Producing in Pandemic. I'm going to hit stop share. These are our digital communication agreements. We always like to start off by sharing the screen and sharing our communication agreements so that we are all on the same page. We are an anti-capitalist peer exchange group exploring all of the different new ways of producing in pandemic. So it means we are sharing skill sets around physically shared space. My new term is co-location, co-located productions, and as well as remote producing and digital producing. So we're sharing all of the things that we've been learning throughout the week, challenges, discoveries. We do a relaxed meeting style. So that means you can be camera on, camera off. We're super accessible. So we're recording this so that others, if they can't be available today, because we actually have a large number of participants who have a conflict at 10 on Monday, so they watch the video afterwards. And I'm not going to call on people. So I will invite you to put your name in the chat as we do our beginning introductions. We begin with a international survey. We often have folks from North America, South America, and sometimes even England in these groups. And we want to find out what's happening in your neck of the woods, even if it is we're struggling and we're not doing anything. All of this information is vital and important. This is also an opportunity for you to share questions with the group that we might even be able to respond to later in the conversation. Sometimes after we do our introductions, we will invite someone to share specifically about a project they are producing so we can get into it and they'll screen share and share that. Or we will do a field trip. And today's field trip is with the app Zencastr. So we're going to be actually trying that out today. We're going to see what happens. So this video might be a little shorter than normal. But let us begin with our introductions. We're going to invite you to share your name, your gender pronouns, to interrupt gender discrimination. We're going to invite you to share a visual description so we're accessible to those who are participating in only an audio aspect. Please share a little bit about your practice and your affiliations. It's really vital for us to know where you're coming from. Also, we do a decolonized reading, so feel free to let us know the land on which you stand. If you need a link in our meeting notes, there is a link to look that up. This is an active thing that we are doing, and we'll invite everyone to participate at the level of their comfort. And then we're going to ask you to share a little bit about either a discovery or a challenge. I will model to begin. I'm going to invite folks to stack in the chat, put your name in the chat, and that will indicate the order in which people will introduce themselves. And then I'm not calling on folks. So, and thank you, Khulud Sawaf, so much for putting the notes. We have a link to our notes. Everyone is invited to join us in that notes document and put your links in there. Put any kind of information into that. We are sharing the note-taking process. And thank you so much for also putting a note for just the introductory script. So, hello. My name is Claudia Alec. My gender pronouns are they, their, she, hers. You can use those interchangeably. I'm speaking to you from the land of the Ohlone people. The people are still alive. And I'm also acknowledging that I live in a country with concentration camps. And I look forward to not including that in my introductions. I am coming to you from the Calling of Justice practice, a transmedia social justice practice. So we're producing plays, we're producing engaging facilitated experiences, we're producing think tanks and incubation labs, we're doing a whole lot of stuff, trying to remake this thing of cultural producing. And let's see, I've got a bunch of company affiliations, Northwest Art Streaming Hub, HowlRound, Network of Ensemble Theaters, many, many beautiful theaters all over the country that I so love and appreciate collaborating with. And kind of, I feel like I'm affiliated with everyone who joins us here. It's not really affiliation, it's community. And my access needs, we do an access check-in just to let folks know anything they need to know so the space will be as accessible as possible to them. I let folks know I have a muscle disorder. So it means sometimes I'm going to pull a face. I'm never pulling a face at something you've said. I'm pulling a face because one of my muscles is pulling me. And a visual description: Black woman, brown afro, sitting in front of a projected background of a black box theater with a pink scrim behind me and a Black Lives Matter sign floating mysteriously in the background due to the magic of green screen technology. And all of my access needs are met. I've got my coffee. If all of your access needs are met, you just say all my access needs are met, because everyone has access needs. All right, now challenger discovery from this week. As always, I tend to be having prolific encounters on a lot of different levels. So I discovered that playing board games is hard online. And so this is I need to do a few more processes of attempting to figure out what's the setup. And it feels like you need to have multiple screens, which feels like an economic barrier. So I'm trying to figure out, are we building a new way of creating that requires multiple screens? And is that going to be a gigantic financial barrier to folks? And I had a real fun time participating in Fool's Fury's celebration provocation this week. And I also had a really fun time exploring the, oh, fiddlesticks, I can't remember what it's called.
Meeting, but I'm working on it.
Else. This app is
please
called Clubhouse. So the Clubhouse app is it's like you go there, it's hard to get in apparently. So they've got some kind of like faux gatekeeping, which I think is actually really effective about like, ooh, can I get in? And then it's all audio. So you're in a space where it's all audio and it has a bar that's like all of the people who are actively speaking. Then it's got another section where you're kind of audiencing and you can be called up. And then it has just another section that just shows you people who are related to the people who are speaking. So I don't know if they're going to change the format of it. If anyone else has had experiences on Clubhouse, I invite you to talk about them. I found it really delightful, but I don't think my experience was average. First of all, I'm late to the party. Like, this app's been out since May. I don't know how I missed it, but I 100% missed it, 100%. So I saw like somebody say blah, blah, blah Clubhouse on Twitter. And I was like, you're saying that like that's a thing I should know about? Oh no. So I Googled it and immediately downloaded it. And then they immediately let me in, which makes me go, is you're not letting people in, or like, is it faux gatekeeping? Is this real? Because it happened real fast. And they were having a conversation about hip hop education. So I was immediately in a space with Camila Forbes, Mark Batmuti Joseph. Like, I was in a theater space with theater makers that I knew, having a conversation. It was like I'd wandered into a TCG conference and just been like, what's going on? Oh, hey, yeah, I'll sit down and have. So I really enjoyed the experience. I'm not sure how accessible it is, and I just tried it out. And I'm curious about it as a space for potential audio theater, audio plays, rehearsals, question marks. So this is a long introduction. I apologize, my colleagues. And then real quick, the Fool's Fury project used Chromecast, not Stagecast, not Chromecast. Oh, I'm messing up the name of all of these programs, y'all. Do you know the program I'm talking about? It's something cast. All right, it's not Chromecast, it's something else. Ooh, yes. I'm looking at the notes here. It was a fun experience of a project called Reading Roulette, where they asked audience members to come out of the audience to join in the reading. So they had a Zoom setup with a backstage area where you could talk freely. Then there was another area where you had to be quiet because that was like behind the curtain about to go on stage. I think it must have been done through an OBS because they gave us frames. So if you were audiencing with people and again, I'm messing up the name of the program. I want to call it Chromecast, and I think it's called something else. You were able to dialogue with audience members on that side, as well as it seemed to be a really interesting way, an effective way to pull a bunch of people very quickly into from the audience into the show. But again, it felt like it needed several screens to work smoothly, which is what I ended up doing. All right, that was my long check-in. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to say check at the end of my statement, and that's how people who are participating in an audio exclusive manner, they will know that I'm done talking. Check.
Thanks, Claudia. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Enels. I use she, her pronouns. I am Zooming from the ancestral land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people on the tallest mountain in what is colonially known as San Francisco. I'm grateful to be here. I am a director, writer, and producer with San Francisco Shakespeare Festival. The name no longer feels that it adequately describes the level of digital work that we're doing and the way that we are reimagining ourselves as an international digital producer, which is very exciting. And I think that this will transform, what's happening now will transform theater and the way that we access theater for the rest of time, if we allow it to do so, and if we are able to make sure that it remains accessible to all. Visual description, I am a white woman wearing glasses with brown frames. I have long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. I am in a room with white walls, and behind me there's a bookshelf, and I think it's a mic stand because my partner was recording a voiceover, and a lamp and a globe over in the corner. And I am wearing a pink turtleneck. My access needs are more or less met. I had a very rough week last week, but I am happy to say that my COVID test results came in last night and I am COVID negative. But I have been diagnosed with anemia. So I was very, very ill last week, but I'm feeling okay today. So I'm working on it. That's a very solvable thing. It's not a bad thing that, luckily I have a diagnosis and I'm happy about that. Because I was so ill last week, and then I just didn't do a lot of digital stuff. But I think the current challenge that I am thinking about a lot with family members, extended family members, is access and technology fear. As a Shakespeare producer, I deal all the time with Shakespeare, like, oh, it's just difficult and I won't be able to understand it, so therefore I'm not even going to try. And that is what I'm coping with my mother-in-law and other senior relatives right now, of tech fear, where they don't even want to try because they're so convinced that it will be inscrutable and impossible and that they will not be able to figure it out. And it's almost like they are creating obstacles for themselves, even in the way that they perceive a screen, that they don't have the background, the nativism to technology to be able to just zero in on what needs to be done on that screen. It's just a whole slew of totally confusing information. So we're working, the direct example is we're using Elfster for a family gift exchange this year, one that has always been done with little slips of paper that everybody has manually picked out and then manually shopped and manually gathered. And now this is all just like theater being flipped to an online format that none of them are familiar with, and they cannot cope. And a lot of coaching is having to come from the sort of, under 50, under 40 crowd to the more senior members of the family. And there are a lot of senior members of the family. So this just makes me think about theater and the barriers and all of the lovely folks who just feel that they would love to experience digital theater, but they just can't figure out how to get to it. Or they're convinced that it will be absolutely confusing and awful, therefore they won't try. So that's my thoughts. Check.
I'm loving the check. Let's see if I can remember to do it myself by the end. I'm Heather, Heather Andersma, she, her pronouns. I am zooming in also from the land of the Ohlone people, specifically Chochenyo speaking Ohlone people, now known as Berkeley, California. I am a middle-aged white woman with gray into red pandemic hair, kind of a puffy, fuzzy wool scarf because California housing, not super insulated, at least not this house, and a gray shirt and a white wall behind me. Let's see, I'm a freelance director. I'm hopefully soon to be intimacy coordinator / intimacy director. I've been doing tons of training for that during the pandemic, which actually has become much more accessible, because it used to be you always had to travel, get lodgings, all of that really to do this training. And now there's so much available online. So that's a little silver lining. My access needs are met, although I may turn my camera off and change rooms because I'm in a house with many people doing many things and not always easy to stay in one room. A challenge / discovery of this week is I was doing a project that I feel like I was doing with although it was my daughter who was doing the project. She got put into a project kind of like in the last few days before it went up. And my kid is 10. So I was really proud of her. She was able to do everything on her own without me at all by the last day. But before that, I was in the room with her. And even on the last day, kind of to piggyback what Rebecca was saying, is that I was still talking audience members through how to get there. And I was trying to do my own thing. So at one point I was just like, grandma's in the room with the actors. I'm sorry. I can't get her out. I think I'm very happy to be here today. I'm very happy to see the familiar faces, and so happy that Kiana's here, happy that Gabriel's here, and check. I remembered, check.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Hamilton. I use the pronoun she, her, hers. I'm coming to you from the traditional snow-dusted lands of the Kumtuk and Nipmuc people here in what's now known as Western Massachusetts. It's where I run the Co-Festival of Performance. I am a woman with long, straight, very snowy white hair, a blue fleece jacket because it's chilly, and a green turtleneck in a peacock colored room. So there's kind of a theme. You're seeing it from a slightly different angle today. Just thought I'd vary it up. One discovery this week is I'm a Christmas music nut. And I've been like ridiculously so. And so there have been some wonderful online versions where there are people who are really good singers. And then other things where everybody's supposed to join in, where they've actually had the lyrics on the side of the screen for the ones that you're supposed to join in on. And what I've discovered, that the great joy of digital singing is that when you're on mute, nobody can hear you miss pitches, and you can just go all out and not be embarrassed. Check.
Hello, I guess that means it's me now. I had to double check what order I was in the queue for. I was like, oh, it's me. Hi, I am Kiana Key Alexander. I am calling from Charlotte, North Carolina, formerly the land of the Waccamaw people, who unfortunately are no longer in this area. I look like a young lady in a pastel pinkish peachish shirt with Aladdin's face on it, with a blue sheet for a background. I use she, her pronouns. My affiliations are with the Women's Theater Festival, with Mojoa Performance Art, and a self-produced online TV show called Theater's Not Dead, of which Heather has been a guest on formerly. I'm trying to see what else I'm missing. So one of the challenges that I have learned from this week is a sister challenge that Heather was kind of explaining earlier. We had a virtual Christmas Carol happen this week, and because of the demographic of people that it was pubbed to, a lot were older folks, a lot were people inexperienced with what Zoom even is. And we were using Zoom webinar, which for everyone who is familiar with this platform knows, is significantly different than a Zoom meeting and harder to navigate for some folks. So a lot of it was, as the stage manager, trying to wrangle all of the actors while simultaneously like, hi, I am so sorry that your audio's not working. I am so sorry your video's not working. I am so sorry you can't figure out how to get in the first place. So just doing those two jobs, which is so much easier when you're like in person and you can just yell at people from across the room. It's different now. So how to adapt specifically the stage management role to the virtual realm has been quite the journey. Check.
Hola a todos. I think it's my turn. Let me double check. No, I'm like you, Kiana. Yes, it's me. Oh, it's great to hear that you're also in North Carolina. I'm calling in from the Sugary Catawba People's Land, also known as Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, we're so close. I also bring forward always my heritage. I'm Puerto Rican. You can see some of the pictures in the back. So I bring my Taino heritage with me always and forever. I am a brown-skinned male in front of this Puerto Rican El Morro colonial castles of the island in my back with a blue wall, Pilates ball, acrobatic equipment. That's a handstand bench. Yeah, my pronouns are él, ellos, he, his, serious. Also bringing Spanish forward as my first language. And yeah, that's about me. Let's see, I'm affiliated with the Nuvesi Project, which is a social circus company. I'm also full-time faculty at UNC Charlotte. And I'm also with NET, in the board of the Network of Ensemble Theater. So I don't know if those are just of the few, like all of us are in a ton of things. And with my college, I'm also the diversity coordinator for the college. So I have an administrative position there. I wanted to say that I'm happy to be back in this room. It's been a while. It's been hectic these past few months, but I miss you all, and I always appreciate that, like the knowledge share here and all your faces. And so this part of the magic in this pandemic. And I will say, yesterday I was at a call with circus riggers from all over the world, and these connections, like we were talking about the connection of building rigging and how does that connects to the human, the level of trust and whatnot. I mean, as we were trying to evaluate, the future of rigging in that matter, and with professionals from Australia to London to Montreal to all over South America. I mean, this is what one of those silver linings is having these conversations, and we actually were able to put our work in a global perspective and actually know that what we're doing is not just us. And, there are many other variables and other histories and other heritages and so on. So I'm appreciative of that. Discoveries, my company moved to one of our partner space, one of the main stages of Blumenthal, which is a producing organization here. So to continue our physically distant yet acrobatic training, it's been a challenge. We have a backdrop that, we don't see the actual seating because they converted the seating area into a movie theater for like 20 people. They're trying to like make some money at the same time. And I don't know how that's going, but it's odd to see theaters. I mean, trying to do whatever they can, obviously, because they need to figure out a way to stay alive. So that's happening there. I would say also a discovery for me with my students. I had a clown section in my physical theater class, and I explore with them doing like live, video performances, but the audience kept the microphones on. And I saw that at a performance with Delarte, and then I thought, oh shoot, let me see what that does with student presentation. And actually that was, they gave a good feedback on how clown work relies so much on the laughter of the audience. And although there is a delay, you want to hear that you're talking to someone, and you want to hear that what's happening is kind of having that impact. And even as an audience member to laugh and then hear somebody laughing and whatnot, it created a level of community that sometimes we lose when we're doing some of these online performances. So, you know, it's a rediscovery of like having the audience with a microphone on. What can that do for the live performance? Is an interesting subject matter that I'm going to encourage for their finals. That's right, I'm headed to the finals with them too this semester. So yeah, I think that's all. Check.
Okay, hi everybody. So nice to see so many familiar faces. My name is Gabriel Grilli. Pronouns are he, him. I go by GG for short, if you don't know me. And I am in Manhattan on the land of the Lenape people. My practice, like many of you, I am an artist, and I also am involved with a company that I started called Bric-a-Brac, that we're a member of the network of ensemble theaters, do a lot of physical theater work. I'm also recently, I started working for an organization called Meet Eye to Eye, which is an online platform that hosts events. So I'm here in a lot of different capacities, but one of them is to learn about other platforms, and to introduce you to the one that I'm working for, because it's a Bay Area located organization, and it's one that also is really interested in incorporating artists and artist practices into their work, and especially people who are involved in social justice. I know it's very important to the founders of this company. So I can tell you more about that if you're interested. I guess I'll put a link in. Heather jumped on into our launch party, which happened a few months ago, but like like someone else was mentioning, it's a new platform, it's evolving. There's a lot of tech to troubleshoot. It's not as easy as getting on Zoom and just clicking a button. So we've been working through, I mean, not me, I don't have those technical skills, but the technical team has been working through that. I kind of, let's see, visual description. I'm a swarthy, middle-aged individual. I just cut my own hair. Hopefully it came out okay. And short brown hair. I'm in a pretty nondescript white room. My access needs are met. One challenge discovery this week. Yeah, so I actually was back in the theater this week for the first time since this has started. I was just a piece I was performing in another ensemble that we actually put on film. It's a Korean American production. Half of it was filmed here, half of it was filmed in Korea, and they're editing the parts together. I don't know how that's going to work out. Hopefully, okay, but it was interesting and it was challenging. We observed, of course, a lot of safety practices. We got a lot of COVID testing done. We performed with masks on, which was challenging. It was a musical, so it was singing, so we were singing with masks on. It was really challenging, but I'm happy to talk more about that if people are interested. The company is called Concrete Temple Theater, which is also based here in New York. And yeah, it was a really interesting project. Check.
Hello. That was sudden. I was like, oh, we're done. Hi. I'm Rebecca, she, hers. I'm speaking to you from the land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, colonially known as Berkeley, California. My access needs are met. I'm in I'm a white woman with red dyed pandemic root hair that is side braided with little tiny glass earrings and a navy blue long sleeved waffle weave shirt. And I am sitting in front of, I'm in what is technically a white room, but it is very full of theatrical rubble and life. Suitcases, mirrors, masks, rugs, things, you know. And yeah, it continues to be a crazy time. But like everyone has said, I'm like, these faces. Yay. That's just such a comfort right now, and generally. The things that I'm the co-founder of Analog Theater, which was supposed to be doing second, digital, cutting edge second century technology, except it's the pandemic. So we've had to pivot digitally, and I'm still working with Playground in their Innovator Incubator, and I'm a company member there, and the stuff that's been percolating for me. I did my MFA in England, and so I still hear about a lot of stuff going on there. And there's a thing that's happening right now called Advent, and it's an advent calendar that's online. That's basically just weirdos. It's just weirdos. It's the people who did the theater company Shunt, which I had known about but just missed when I went to do my, yay, Sabrina's nodding. But I had known about the company when I went to do my MFA, and they had just closed like a giant crazy show that was kind of punch drunky, and I had really wanted to see it. And so when I heard that the people from Shunt were doing some online experience, thank you, Claudia, you're so fast, that they were doing this thing. And as I always feel about anything I'm ever involved with abroad, I'm always just like, oh my God, this idea, why didn't I have this idea? This is such a simple, great idea that's so obvious, like you could do something like this, and it doesn't occur to me. And the English. The idea of it is that it's an advent calendar where you have a password for individual days that they send to you in your email. And then for that day, it's like you have a link to, Advent Day 6. It's the 6th of December. And you go and you put the password in and you see a door, and it's different doors every day. And then you click a button to open the door and it takes you to, I just love that Claudia is like so far ahead of me. It's amazing. But they're super weird, you guys. Like once you go through the door, like a lot of them are like, what even is this? But it's called Advent. So it's like, accurate marketing. But the bit where they explain what they do is like so charming that you go, oh, whatever, like I'll do this eventually. But anyway, I just thought it was such a great idea to package something where you could have lots of tiny artists involved and do this kind of immersive experience, which is when you go to an individual day, you never know when they're going to have you it's like Claudia is showing on the screen. This is amazing. Where it's like you hit a button and you're listening to something while you're reading a thing, and where there's just thing, and this is very typical of the kinds of immersive theater that I was seeing being made when I was studying abroad, and I don't see it as much here. And so I was just excited to be like, we have to do more things like this. And then also kind of the polar opposite. I saw 7 shows. I saw a ridiculous number of shows this week because of just all of what was happened to be happening with all of my people. And it's interesting how as soon as I'm like, I have been seeing a lot of shows from everywhere, and I'll catch some material that was generated abroad and see it frequently, like not when they're actually showing it, like I'll get the link and see it after the fact. And today was the American week, and I was like, there's a few notable examples of people who are like going inside the medium. And then there's a lot of the kind of Brady Bunch, or there's a lot of feeling like theater artists are really trapped in the Zoom format in a way where even when they're trying to kind of go outside the box, they're still in like 97, like they're only kind of operating within the tiniest little box. And so just trying to be like, how do we go and kind of encourage everybody to get out of that. Sorry, I'm very articulate this morning, but I'm so happy to be here and check.
I'm gonna come on video for a little bit to say hello to all my wonderful friends that are here. course, I just took a bite right before the okay, I'm Mickey Goldhaber, Artistic Director of Rye Cripps Disabled Women's Theater in Berkeley, California on Ohlone land, she, her pronouns. I'm having some major access needs today. I've been experiencing vertigo, and it's making it very hard for me to look at screens. So I often just listen to the meeting, and I'll particularly be doing that today. I'll just look now and then. My big, wonderful, exciting update from last week's disappointing one is that after the virtual performance for Rye Cripps fell through, I immediately reached out to my friend Reagan Linton at Family, and now Rye Cripps and Family Theater in Denver, probably the two oldest disabled theater companies in the country, are going to be collaborating on a virtual event for the April anniversary of the 504 sit-in that will include our piece and some work from Family. And we're just beginning to figure it out, but we're really thrilled. It's probably going to be very low key, but open to the public. And my challenge is really, how do you watch stuff when it's hard to look at screens? I've been doing a lot of listening. And the one other thing, I know and love you guys, so I'm gonna be real honest. The kids in my household are out of town. And so my partner and I experienced our first virtual strip club. And it was quite great. And I really appreciated how they involved the audience. And for a performer, theater, you could see all of the audience windows, and we got to react to the performers. We were muted, so we didn't, the hooting and hollering was only in our living room, but and the chat was very interactive. So I thought all of that was interesting, as well as a lot of fun and hot. And I'll try and find the link for it if anyone's interested. And check.
Hello, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Khouloud Sawaf, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm speaking to you from the ancestral homeland of the Osage, the Quapaw, and the Caddo people, which is colonially known as Fayetteville, Arkansas. My access needs are that I need to keep my camera off for some of this session, but I'll try to come on and off as I'm able to. I am a Syrian woman with olive skin and the Muslim head covering known as the hijab, dark gray color today, and a red top with non-descriptive room, off-white wall, and a blue couch. And I'm part of the Calling Up Justice producing team. I'm a theater director and creator in real life when we used to do those things. And I am a challenger discovery this week. Not much going on for me, but I'm thinking a lot about the same things that Rebecca brought up with the element of how do we break through the screen? How do we creatively engage in a figure out creative ways of engagement? And so that's really what's going on in my mind and what I'm thinking about a lot. And that's my check-in. Thank you. And I believe we are met.
I was just sitting here, just being quietly listening, really enjoying this. It is such a deep pleasure to do the exercise of allowing a random gathering of people tell a story about what it is we are doing. because it's always a good story and a connected story. I just want to lift up one of the things that we talked about. And actually, I'm going to say thank you for teaching me the word tech fear and Shakespeare and coupling them. Because I think you're really accurate that the methods you use to help people get rid of their Shakespeare, they're the same methods you use to help them get rid of their tech fear. It's all about getting familiar and being comfortable in spaces where you're unfamiliar and will have to learn competency. I find there's a lot of resistance with audiences when they feel that they will be shamed for not having competency. They feel angry because they feel like they should have competency. When I was doing like analog physical theater producing, I was doing the same kind of wayfinding and path making exercises for marginalized and distanced audiences who had never been to the theater space. What were the ways I was allowing really safe encounter to be able to happen? What were the ways I was designing that asynchronously? So like, were there ways where people could stop by campus, not when the show was happening, but stop by the theater campus to get familiar with it, maybe to pick up something or to drop something off, so that when it came time for them to really be present, they felt they had confidence because they'd gone through the path before. It wasn't new. As a theater maker, I've wandered enough theater buildings, couldn't find the door to get in. Has it ever happened to you? Come on, especially when auditioning. So just a shout out to all of us finding ways to alleviate tech fear, and all of us who are creating some digital wayfinding. And at some point in a future conversation, we should have a conversation about that and all the different digital wayfinding techniques. I'm finding Eventbrite seems to be a real aggressive piece of the puzzle for a lot of folks. I also wanted to do a shout out to Sabrina's observation that the experience of audiencing in group singing in a digital context was actually really fun. It had the perk of allowing you to sing as if no one was listening, because they could not hear you. And I have had that same experience where I was able to, I mean, my poor upstairs neighbors, but other than that, I was able to sing, and it didn't matter if I was on time or on the right notes, and it was really joyful. 100%, Gigi, would you please drop those links? Drop them links. And also I'm going to invite you to do, I'm already messing myself up. We're supposed to be playing with Zencastr, y'all, but I want you to tell us all about the platform and show us everything. So if that's what we spend our time doing, it's okay. I might just end up emailing y'all the Zencastr link and be like, play with it on your own. And what was the last shout out? I just wanted to say thank you, Mickey, for sharing or describing the experience of audiencing for burlesque performance. That's extreme audience engagement, right? I've noticed that the drag community and the burlesque community, and frankly, like the strip community, they figured out ways to do this remotely and safely. They actually adapted really quickly and were able to find ways to take their aesthetics and translate them to digital formats so they would still be engaging. Because it's a little different to do a drag performance on a stage where you're filling this frame, and then to do one where you're filling this frame. So just thank you, Mickey, for sharing that experience. And now I feel like I want to go do some exploration and find out more, because I'm like, oh, this is great audiencing and audience engagement. All right, I'm gonna hush now and invite Gigi to, oh, and also Key, am I pronouncing that correctly? I dropped links for your podcast. If you want to talk a little bit about your podcast too, feel free, but I'm going to invite Gigi to share first. Talk to us about that platform. And also, frankly, I'm very curious about the musical theater setup. So let's talk about both of them, if we have time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to like hijack the whole thing, but yeah. So I started a couple months back. I started working for this organization, Meet Eye to Eye, which is basically a friend of mine who had a corporate. Mostly, he was doing like corporate events in the Bay Area. like team building exercises, relay races, just any kind of corporate team building event, which probably a lot of you are familiar with. So he realized with the pandemic, he needed to pivot to online. So he created this platform, Meet Eye to Eye. It's called Meet Eye to Eye because unlike Zoom, it allows you to have more direct eye contact with people because of the way that the platform, the sort of tech works on the platform. Basically, to give a really short description, we call it Zoom meets Zelda. So you go into the platform and there you have an avatar. You have this, first you select your avatar, which there are like many different, visual identifiers that you can choose from to create your own avatar. And then you would go into a virtual event. Within these virtual events, there can be multiple rooms. So there are sort of ways to portal from room to room. We've been using it principally so far for this corporate team building, which has pivoted onto Eye to Eye. So we've been doing events that are like scavenger hunts, icebreakers. A lot of it is for a lot of it is for like organizations that are large and are global or are at least located all around the country. It's perfect for those kinds of things. But it also would be the perfect thing to host a theater piece in, I think, and so does the CEO. So we're sort of looking for people who might be interested in playing around with the platform and making something on it. It's like I said, it's very much still technically developing. So like there are limits right now. It's challenging if you have more than like 10 people in a room, for instance, right now. We've done there's some new developments there's a broadcast feature now. So say you can have a musician in the platform, put on the broadcast feature, and then that musician, what they're doing will broadcast to everybody in all of the rooms. So that's sort of a way around the technical limitations. Or a comedian or something, it obviously is adaptable for, you could have an actor delivering something and it would be seen in
Hey.
all of the different spaces.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to
Yeah.
invite you to share your screen if you want to. I attempted to quick and dirty download it and start exploring it. It's too much for me to do in the moment. But if you have it on your platform, on your computer, it might be useful for us to visually see a little bit of what you're talking about.
Yeah. Let me see if I can bring up. Let me see if I can just bring up the sort of demo page. Let's see.
It sounds really similar to something that was they did for the virtual Burning Man this year.
Oh yeah.
Sounding very similar to that, and I recognize Tyler's name, and so I wonder if actually he was involved in that. Like,
it could be. That's certainly the community that he is connected to, so that wouldn't surprise me.
Did we check out?
Yeah. Let's see. So is everybody seeing my screen here?
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, like if you were to really explore it, you would want to download the app rather than use the web-based platform, because the downloaded app is just a lot more secure. And this computer that I'm on is not super powerful. There are like some technical requirements to run it on your operating system. Like right now I'm talking to you guys, I'm using my Surface, which is like a tiny little machine, and it actually our platform Eye to Eye doesn't like the Surface, so I can't actually go on it here, but I can give you a demo. So here you're just looking at right now what's set as the entry screen. I don't know if I'm logged in here, but basically you would choose an avatar, which you can see. This is my little avatar here that I'm moving around in. And this little blue door on the right side, I'm not sure if everybody's able to see that, but if I click on that, it will show me a list of events that I can join. Looks like somebody is in this infinity event. There's 2 people. Let's see if we can join and see if they're there.
I don't know if other people are seeing what I'm seeing. I'm just seeing.
Say, I don't think we're seeing what you're seeing. All we're seeing is the to launch Meet I2I, I have Windows, I have Mac page.
Okay, so you're.
It might be that you are navigating to other windows and you just need to re-share. You know how that is when you're sharing your screen,
yes.
you go to another thing. So it could be that you just
Yeah.
went to a different window and you
That's
weren't
what
sharing the
happens.
window you were in. Or it
Gotcha,
might be
thank
that
you.
your platform is tricksy and hard to see.
How about that? No, I think it's what you said.
No, this is,
How's
thank
that?
you.
Cool. So let me see. I don't know what the password is here. I think I know
For those, I don't know if we've ever had a Unity conversation inside of one of our sessions. I feel like it's come up a couple of times. Unity is a great platform for creating digital spaces. And I looked at Unity for trying to build like 3D VR stuff.
Oh, cool. So I'm in the demo now. You can see, actually, these are a couple of my colleagues that are in here. Who I can hear. So you can see they must be demoing something. And you can see if I move away from them, then I no longer hear them. If I had full functionality, I could have clicked on their videos and then I would have been meeting eye to eye with either of them, but I don't have full functionality on this. But you can see up here, there's a little theater. So I'm in the theater here. So there could be other people whose avatars are on the little stage performing. I'm going to go through this little portal. And I don't know where it's going to take me. I'll be just as surprised as all of you. Because I'm on the web-based app, it's good. It's very slow. It's much slower than if you have the install.
Gigi, because we're flying fast and loose. Oftentimes we invite people to do like formal presentations, and of course this time we're just like, let's just play and figure stuff out.
Totally, yeah.
Great. But I'm wondering if we were to plan this out, like for next week or the week after. I think we have the week off. But if we were to, is there a way for us, for this group of humans to go explore Meet Eye to Eye? Could we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You could do it right now on your own, just like I was, or you can download it on your own, and there are ways to just go in and move around. And that's exactly what I thought people might be interested in doing. It's nice to do on your own because then there isn't the pressure of like meeting people at a time for an event, and you can go in when it's convenient for you, and you can think about the possibilities of how you might apply your practice to this platform. I'm also just curious, like if people know of other platforms that are similar, that are doing things well, that we can learn from as well, that I can like pass on to the development team if you guys have ideas about that. Because I know, like for instance, I know Piano Fight recently did a benefit that was in a similar type of environment. I wasn't able to go to that, but I'm curious if anybody was there, how that worked. And it was a similar avatar based type of experience. But yeah, I'm happy to talk about it and we can figure out how to make that happen.
All I know is that there's a reason why we meet together as a group, and it's because testing platforms out collectively from different places around the country and with other folks, it helps you test things like latency, how hard is it actually to get on? Because some of us are really, we pick tech stuff up really quickly. Others, it takes a minute, and it's good to know what is the actual threshold of getting on. So this is my question for everybody in the group, because I had a couple of folks who were potential guests for next week, but would y'all like to do a real field trip to this eye to eye, Meet Eye to Eye space? Awesome. All right. So next week, that's what we're going to do. Try and do that. So I'm going to invite folks, and we will also send an extra message in the chat to say, hey, download it, get it on your computer, because there actually is a little bit of labor involved.
Yeah.
But you had asked a question, and I am curious in this group, is there anyone who has used a platform that's like this? Do people want to do any storytelling real quick?
Sure. I have been known to go to Burning Man, and this year Burning Man went completely online. And what is normally the structure of Burning Man, for people who haven't been there, is that there is an entire city that pops up kind of overnight in the desert. And part of the fun of Burning Man is essentially that there is this map, some of which is known and some of which is not known, that you wander about, and you're kind of in this adventure mode of like showing up in different places and seeing what they have to offer and whatever. And so they created a number of different virtual Burning Man platforms, like, and I only explored one, and the one that I explored was very similar to this. What was pleasing about it was that there was that it was very the skin, maybe is what you would call the look of the whole world, where it was very sketched out, and there was really a sense of depth, as opposed to the what I would term in this case like the kind of Super Mario, the old school Super Mario look of things, where everything was like this black and white sketch, and then as you would approach people, you would suddenly see their video. But what it meant is that in that case, it required that you had your video on. And if you saw someone moving towards you and you're like, I don't want to actually be in a conversation with you, I'm trying to go look at something, like you'd have to like run away. So that was really stressful for me as somebody who was just like, oh, I didn't get dressed up tonight. Like normally when you're out in the desert, you're like, oh, I put my lights on and I'm wearing my moose head with, light up bits and whatever, so that I don't get hit by an art car in the dark, or, like you're kind of prepared to be seen as well. And in this case, like, I didn't want to be a creeper, but I also was just like, I'm just in my bedroom. Like, this is weird. It feels like it's breaking the experience to me. And so I'm curious how to navigate that in this setting, certainly as far as shows, but even just kind of every day, that in that case, when I did interact with people, it was just so jarring to suddenly be like, oh, there was this artfully created world that looked a particular way. And then suddenly I'd start to hear people. They had it timed so that you could hear people as you approached, kind of, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you'd actually have to be quite close to them in order for both your videos to turn on. But they had a kind of a rule of engagement of that one, that in order to do anything, you had to enable video. And you had to enable video and sound so that if you could see somebody, they could also see you. But there were clearly also people who were doing this together in that case, which was super cool, where it was just like, oh, you could actually be navigating a camp Burning Man type structure with like different things that you could see and do, but you're actually like there's these little bubbles on screen where you could see the people who you were like marauding is the wrong word, but you were adventuring with your group, and that was cool.
Colleagues, I am forgetting the name of this it was like an entire online universe. It was an entire thing. Like, it was very popular for many years. They had their own currency. There's actually been many of these, but this was like one of the big ones. And I'm forgetting the name of it.
Second Life.
Second Life, that's exactly what it was. Thank you. So at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, I think I was like in my second year there, I was like, you know what we should do? We should build a Second Life avatar of us there, because that would be the logical thing to. I was always like a decade ahead of where everybody else was, so it made no sense. But I did collaborate with a bunch of people. We recreated the Old Globe Theater. We did a at a distant performance of a play. It was awful. Not because we were awful, but because the technology wasn't there yet. So the latency, the awful just audio artifacts embedded in everybody's stuff because nobody had enough tech. The only reason I was able to even participate on any kind of a human level was because I was doing it from the office, where I had all of their technology. If I tried to do it from home, I tried to do it from home, and none of my computers could handle it. So I had to do the Shakespeare experiment in my office. But I recall being like, oh, this is an interesting thing to do in Second Life. There was also, people have been doing performances in some of these other gaming platforms where they'll sometimes have a pop-up DJ set or a pop-up performance. I'm very curious about digital platforms where different stuff can happen.
I'm super into this as well because I've gone to concerts and watched some concerts in Fortnite and stuff. This is another area in which I'm like, wow, if our beloved, lovely audience cannot actually get into the Zoom reading, how do we get them to create avatars and join us in virtual reality or even augmented reality? Like, you know, folks who've met RTD, Neil Ormond, he's like he's all over this stuff, but he really wants an augmented reality show with everyone doing all kinds of stuff. And I just think of our audience and think we're going to lose a lot of people because they're just going to be overwhelmed by that tech fear. So then I get back to this idea of like what you said, Claudia, of sort of orientations and walkthroughs and how we can make that less scary and more accessible and more fun for people.
I am loving this conversation, and it's taking a lot of self-control to not get super nerdy and just start questioning you hardcore about the back end. So next week, we are doing a full playthrough. Also, perhaps we can invite some more people who will want to maybe get into those more nerdy code conversations with me. But I'm deeply excited. This is a cool platform. Thank you for introducing it to us.
Absolutely cool. I know next to nothing about the tech end of it. I'm just putting that out there. So I probably won't be able to answer any of your questions, but I could probably pass you on to somebody who could in the event that you wanted to learn more.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can just preemptively invite somebody so they can, because I know I'm not the only one who sometimes has some nerdy tech questions, but they actually are useful questions in terms of how all of these different platforms are engaging with each other. Oftentimes, because the design affect of a lot of these programs is for the user who doesn't know anything, they've made a lot of stuff invisible. And then you've got coding conflicts between different platforms and you don't know why it's not working. And so it's impossible for you to fix. So I love engaging in experimental, trying out the platforms with a big group of folks, because sometimes you have somebody in there who goes, oh, that's a glitch that's always going to happen if you try to use Skype with this. Do this workaround.
Mm-hmm.
But I am going to encourage us to shift topics just a little bit. I wanted to hear just a little bit more about your podcast. Could you tell us just a little bit more about your podcast?
I struggle to unmute myself every single time. Hello, everyone. So the show itself is called Theater's Not Dead. It started as kind of a gag when we were at the top of the pandemic and all of my peers and colleagues were kind of expressing, oh, every theater is shutting down. This is the end of our industry, right? Like this is it. This is everyone calling it quits. So as I was transitioning into doing more virtual stuff and seeing how many people were experimenting with this new medium, I was like, I don't think theater's dead, you guys. Thus, the show was born. So we specifically focus on different series every single month. So November was Women Doing the Damn Thing. And it was specifically marginalized and women of color, talking about like, these are issues that I see in my industry. And this is why I decided not to work in certain institutions or certain organizations and instead start my own, or instead create and self-produce my own works. This upcoming month, we're in December. So in December, we're going to be starting Next Gen, which is young people talking about how older folks may have, not been the best leaders. And what can we do to change our practices as theater makers to make spaces more available, make spaces more safe for our individual artists, but then also demographic of artists in general, because some people get ignored, some people get gatekeeped out of being a part of this. So dismantling this idea of theater being elitist and making it more accessible to people is kind of the root of the show. So we bring in all types of theater makers, and how are they making it more accessible? How are they being more inclusive and changing how we view this industry? So it's just little old me. And then I got a producer. So I now have a teammate who's kind of like, hey, maybe you should do some branding stuff because you just make videos and you don't tell anybody about them. I was like, oh, you're so right, producer. Thank you, producer. So now there's 2 people working on it, but we're still very grassroots, still very early on in everything. I don't call us a podcast because we're not on any of the podcast platforms yet. I'm putting the yet in there now. So it's just every Tuesday morning, it's my face talking to some other faces about theater. Heather has been on the show previously when she was working with Women's Theater Festival. So we talked about how weird comedy is specifically for the virtual realm, because there's no way to gauge your audience. So that's a good episode. Every episode's a good episode. But yeah, so that's kind of it. I also view the show as a way for artists to get exposure and to have their own stories amplified.
And it
That's the spiel.
looks like your guest tomorrow is the amazing Amanda Washington. Is that true?
Amanda's going to be on later this month.
Oh.
But yes, so she is in the queue. So tomorrow, literally tomorrow, next episode, we're talking to 3 young individuals about intimacy, especially in the virtual realm, because inviting people into your home is very intimate. So Zoom rehearsals, like, you can't control all that your peers are seeing in your background. So like just talking about gender parity specifically and the intimacy of virtual theater as well. So those are our 2 topics.
And is this a live broadcast? So I would just go to like YouTube and just watch you do it live? What time on Tuesdays do you do it?
Oh, I'm so sorry, everyone on the West Coast. It's 11 a.m. for us Eastern time people. So that is math. I think that's 8 for y'all.
That's fun morning listening. I love it. That's fabulous. And I don't have a commute anymore, so it's great. Here's another question. I love that you said the thing that I was going to ask you about, which was, how are we labeling these different creations, these different cultural productions that we're making? I mean, to a certain extent, I call everything theater. And that's been one of my kind of political avant-garde things to do, to be like, that's theater, everything's theater. Because I felt like there was some gatekeeping going on where people were like, oh, we're going to call this theater, we're going to call that some community, whatever it is, but it's not real and it doesn't get any funding or get distributed. We're now doing all of this blended transmedia work where some of it's physically engaged, some of it's digitally engaged, some of it is nonfiction, some of it is fiction. Like some of it's about creating new worlds, some of it's about just having a conversation, engaging in the world that we have. I don't know if it matters that I can't get your content on a podcast network, but what would you call, like you called it a show?
I mean, we kind of, just for verbiage, we say talk show. So kind of putting it in, we're a small time version of Oprah or Ellen DeGeneres, where like, we can't give out cars to everyone in the audience, but we are a talk show on YouTube. And one of the questions that we try to tackle during the episodes is virtual theater going to be sustainable after we open up quarantine? And is this real theater? And does it have any merit for artistic creators? And I asked the question, so I'm not going to provide the answer. I just love to hear people's takes on it. I keep saying which the host in me dies a little bit every time. The other kind of question that's happening in our industry that I love to talk about is how do we label this stuff, right? I say virtual theater a lot. It's still theater, it's still a thing. It just happens to be all digital. But multimedia theater was happening before the quarantine, before the shutdown, right? This isn't technically new stuff, especially when you think about Twitch has been a thing. Twitch has always been a thing. It's just more people are now using it. So I argue every single time, if we look at the roots of theater, it has always adapted to the current circumstances of the people using it, of the people working within it. So if we continue to adapt and not be stuck on this idea that theater traditionally has to be in a proscenium and we have to do this, that, and this, wow, are we getting back to the roots of theater where it reflects the lives of those that's creating it? Fascinating. I get on my soapbox a lot, y'all, regarding this particularly because I get so upset about it. So you also get to hear me rant about these theater purists on the show because I rage every time.
I am so here for it. I'm so happy that I have now discovered my Tuesday mornings. Yeah. No, I'm available at 8 o'clock on Tuesday mornings. This is gonna be my new fun morning listening. I'm so excited. This is my jam. I've noticed that there are a lot of people who are publishing their work on traditional podcast networks, but they're also publishing it on YouTube. Why? Because one of the like I know back in the day when I was doing a very silly podcast called Hold On, wait for it. We felt very clever. We would do that over Skype, and we did it over Skype because we were like, well, we don't have like fancy equipment and stuff, but I figured out if I did a Skype call with her and I turned on GarageBand at the same time, I could record the call. And that's how we pulled it off. This was like back in the day and us being really sloppy with not a lot of tech. I love being able to see people's faces. So I will sometimes watch a podcast, which just feels real silly because I'm sitting there just watching people talk, but I guess it's a talk show, podcast. The current deal that's been made between that we looked at, the deal between SAG-AFTRA and Equity, it's got some limitations about what it's allowing the theaters to do when they're labeling themselves theater, which I find complicated. Because when I really got into the text, I was like, well, wait a second. When I was just doing theater only in the physical space, I had all of the elements they're now disallowing because my work was transmedia and multimedia. So I'm curious about defining theater through limitations and how we can perhaps find ways to avoid that. All right. I apologize to our audience. This is the third week in a row where you have been promised a Zencastr app and you're not getting it because I'm turning back to Gigi to ask about the musical theater setup. We understand that COVID-19 and the coronavirus, it spreads through particulates. And when you sing, you are projecting your voice. And I just know that I've gotten a little damp sitting in an audience with some really talented actors on the stage. So what was the setup that made this safe? I'm so curious.
Sure. Yeah, it was, well, one of the things was that we tested every time before we went into the theater each week, basically. And we only worked in person, like, I think leading up to the shoot, we worked 3 or 4 days in this space. So we would do it, and testing here in New York has been a nightmare. I don't know how it is for you guys, but I spent cumulatively probably over 12 hours waiting in testing lines to get tested here on different days. The show was staged. They staged it so that we were at least 6 feet apart at all times. There were these screens that we had that were scenic elements that actually were plastic coated and sort of like a saran wrap. and those were used to divide us physically from each other. The screens were actually already part of the set, so they just sort of repurposed them for COVID. There was no audience there. It was just shot for the cameras. And they were, and we, wore these K95 masks, and there were periodically the masks were replaced. Periodically, the space was aired out, and everybody had to leave the space. And they would air out the theater every, I forget how many hours it was, but I want to say if we worked about 3 hours, then everybody had to leave the space for about a half an hour. These were all, I don't know that these practices are keeping with any sort of industry standards, but they were practices that this company developed. And they actually gave the cast, we actually took a vote on if we were comfortable performing with masks on or without masks, or only with masks on when we were not speaking. We actually had a lot of different options, and the cast, and rather than decided democratically, it was decided based on whoever wanted the most protections. Then we deferred to that person. So basically, we ended up doing the whole thing with masks on when there were, people fell in different levels of the spectrum in terms of what their comfortability was. But we went with again, this wasn't my choice. It wasn't my production. I was just a performer in it, but we ended up doing the whole piece with masks on. Yeah, key.
Masks or shields, or was that part of the question?
We did, shields wasn't part of the question. We performed with these N95 masks, which are which actually the costume designer had designed other masks, but they were really difficult to sing in, so we ended up not using these, and instead we just used these, which are, not very green, unfortunately, because they're disposable. Yeah, but right. Oh, and I think, Claudia, yours has one of those inserts in it, which we also played like, does that have like a plastic insert in it that keeps it away from your face more?
No, this is like my most expensive nice masks that I got back in the day to protect me against smoke particulates. So, and it was just the one I happened to have here, because I was like, what was it like? What would it be like to try and sing in this particular window? It does have, so it's built out to give you some room, so it's not flat on the face. I know what you're talking about, though. There are plastic inserts you can use that will help. Did those work for you?
I didn't personally try it because I took one look at them and I was like, that's not going to work for me. But some of the other people experimented with it, and it just made their voices sound really muffled. We were also mic'd for this. Like, everybody had their individual lav mics, so that makes a difference too. We weren't trying to project to reach microphones that were in the audience, so we were able to try to it was challenging for a lot of reasons as a performer, but one of them was just obviously the volume and the way that we're accustomed to singing to reach a large theater. Like, the last time we did this piece was in a large theater in South Korea, in Seoul, so we were really projecting, and to try to figure out, as many musicals adapted to film have this challenge, how do you adapt it, at what level are you singing, the sound. I think they mainly recorded it to have to make this piece because of their contractual obligations with the Korean side of the production. So I think they really just wanted to capture what the piece was at this point, but the plan is still to realize it theatrically once the pandemic is over.
That reminds me, I'm taking a step back to our previous conversation about, is it a podcast? Is it a talk show? Is it a play? Is it a transmedia experience? Is it a community event? I love the idea of, the reason I like transmedia as a modality is that it allows you to have multiple iterations and and ways for that narrative or experience to live in multiple spaces. So that's why I use the term transmedia. I'll be honest, y'all, I use it sloppily. I use it in a Claudia way that maybe 80% aligns with how most industry people are using the term. But I love the idea of being able to make something that will work for now at a distance, and it prepares us for something perhaps more intimate and co-located in the future. That's dope. Also, big shout out to having a decision model that defaults to what the most marginalized need is. That's obviously the logical way to design stuff. Generally, it's like, oh, we're going to ask anybody if they're uncomfortable with it. And if anyone's uncomfortable, we don't do it. Or we ask, what's the most hardcore safety need you have? All right, that's the one we're going to meet. Bare minimum. I love that. It sounds like you felt safe in the experience. I mean, I feel like it's a little nerve-wracking being an actor or performer in these things because you don't have control.
Yeah, it was interesting for me as somebody who is a producer as well to I mean, I've for many years now gone back and forth, and it was actually really interesting because someone did test positive for COVID during the process and had to be replaced. Like we basically the ASM ended up stepping in and playing a role because one of the people that we had been in the space with, performing with, working with, tested positive. He had to drop out because there wasn't enough time for him to quarantine and then for them to reschedule the shoot for after the quarantine and all of that. So, and no one else tested positive, which I guess is a testament to the safety procedures that they took, that nobody else contracted it, even though we were in the same space with him. We were rehearsing on one of the earlier days where we weren't really singing. We were just like moving in the space and talking. But I think exactly. It was really, I felt safe. But I also, I'm not around people who might be immune compromised. I think that I had it back in last spring, so I'm probably not going to get it again. But recognizing that people in that group may have had very different levels of fear and did express really different levels of fear. It was nice. And I think the producers they understood that it was really extraordinary circumstances, and they were very focused on making sure everybody felt that they were safe, and they're people that I've known for several years. So all of that helped a lot. I think going into a space with a brand new relationship with producers that I didn't know adds its own another level of challenge, obviously.
Yeah, I'm just going back to the sorry, go ahead, Kate. I'll say this and then you say what you're going to say. I'm going back to the top of the conversation where we were talking about digital wayfinding. I'm realizing I need safety wayfinding. I need trust wayfinding. The levels of trust I just normally drop into the theatrical space with, they're no longer there. Like I need to have a robust dialogue with anyone I'm collaborating with now to, for safety, for my safety, for my family's safety. That's real. What were you going to say, Kate?
My question for Gigi, I am so sorry if I missed this in your descriptor. How is the audience consuming the show? Is this being live streamed or was this pre-recorded and then edited? How did y'all do that?
They built the same set in Seoul that we had, and so there's a Seoul cast and there's a US cast, and we actually have scenes where we're interacting, but we never met or even saw their footage. They're all being edited together. Now, some of them we worked with when we were in Seoul last year, so we know them, and we kind of but we didn't have a chance to make the performance interactive. I think they say they're going to have it that's going to be available to watch. I don't know if it just means on their platform, on their website, or on YouTube or what, but I do my feeling was that they were principally doing it for archival reasons rather than necessarily that it's meant to be a finished product. I think they realizing how compromised the experience was going to be for an audience, because we were wearing masks, and um, it was filmed very fast as well. I would say for a piece that it probably runs, I don't know, maybe it's an 80-minute theater piece. We filmed the whole thing in 2 days, which is sort of extraordinary. Like they were doing 1 or 2 takes and on each scene, and they were like doing a wide while they were doing close-ups as well. So it was very challenging for an actor to know what you're doing in that circumstance and know how you're coming across on the screen. So I just kind of tried to do my best. Yeah, because as people know who go back from medium to medium, that the framing is such a huge framing changes, of course, the scale of your performance a lot if you're sensitive to framing, and so that was really challenging. So to be honest, Key, I don't really know exactly how it's going to be shown to people. I'm kind of like going to discover it as they do it.
That's a really good question, though.
Yeah.
I feel so much stress for you as you describe the situation.
I'm so curious though about the cameras as well. So this is a conversation I've had with some folks about, how are we working to create projects that are accessible to multiple types of audiencing co-located, audiencing remote, and also what audience experience are you centering? Because there's a difference between, just as you were talking about, Gigi, the frame, how the performer is being asked to perform. Am I being asked to perform to the frame, to the camera, to the outside remote audience? Or am I playing to an audience that they can't see, and now are they suddenly feeling left out because I'm actually doing something with other people and they're not part of it? I'm curious about that, as well as what was it like to have cameras in your face? Like, were they close up? Like, how were they 6 feet up? Like, how did they do that?
They shot it from the house of the theater. I mean, it's not a large space. This is Dixon Place in New York, for you guys who've been there. So it's like I don't know how many seats are in there, maybe 50 typically, maybe 70. And yes, we maintain 6 feet of distance, right? So they never were in our face with cameras. It was like a 3-camera shoot. But I knew it was, the other thing that was interesting was with the camera operators, we were maxed out on how many people were supposed to be in the space. It was like 10 people or something that we had between the cast and crew. So I think it was just they did it as bare bones and as quickly as they could with the budget that they had and with the capacity that they had, I think is what it was. And I think we were all, as artists participating, we recognized that, and we were grateful. I felt very grateful just to be doing something in a space with other people at this point in time. It felt, there was something very moving about that, actually. Yeah, it was challenging, but I felt, like I said, I felt very safe the whole time, and I felt like they were, they were really great at looking out for our comfort level. I'm sorry, Claudia, I don't know if I answered everything that you were asking about the shooting.
You totally answered all my questions. Can I just do a shout out to this again? It's a weird thing that we've been doing since March. We basically opened up a Zoom and we're like, we'll be here at 10 to talk about producing in pandemic. And every week, an amazing combination of awesome artists arrive, and we have some vital conversations about a lot of different aspects of this new field that we're creating, or the old field that we are transforming. So just thank you for everything you shared. Thank you for all who came today. Apologies for me. I continue to punt our Zencastr playing. So next week. We have 2 platforms we want to play in. Now, I put a link to the Zencastr invite. I put an invite link in this. We will follow up with an email that has links or directions for what you can do before you come. And we'll also design next week's session so that it's all check-in, and then we're just playing. We're going to resist Claudia's urge to have fun conversations. I'm going to hit stop on record. Goodbye, asynchronous audience. Goodbye.